Hi, I'm Jilly G. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make my gluten-free strawberry pretzel jello dessert. In fact, I think the original recipe is called Strawberry Delight, something like that. I think most people serve this as a dessert, but in my family, we've always served jello as a side dish to go with everything else. So this recipe is really easy to make, but it is time consuming. Almost all of that time is spent waiting for things to cool off or chill in the fridge. So I'm going to preheat my oven to 350. I've got a 9x13 casserole dish here. I've got 3/4 of a cup of melted butter that I just melted in the microwave, and this is 1 tablespoon of honey. I'm going to dump it into my butter while it's still warm, just so it can kind of get dissolved and melted in there. Let me set this aside. As always, I'll give you the equivalents to sugar in the description box with the recipe. I've been making this recipe for many years. In fact, even before I went gluten-free, I used to make this recipe. And so when I first went gluten-free, I couldn't find any gluten-free pretzels anywhere. So I would make this recipe with Rice Chex cereal and just substitute the pretzels for the cereal for the crust. And it worked, but it wasn't the same. So if you can't find or can't have gluten-free pretzels, you can still find a different kind of cereal or crunchy cracker or something and make the crust. This is the brand that I've got, and these are the little mini pretzel shapes, but you can get the sticks as well. And it's not very often that you see me use a store-bought product like this. But I don't make pretzels like this at home. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. But maybe I'll work on that. You could use a food processor for this, but I find that a food processor gets it too finely chopped for what I like it to be. I like it to be kind of a chunky crust. And I find the easiest way to do that is just a plastic bag and a rolling pin. And I don't know if you can see that or not. Of course, some of it does kind of crush pretty finely. But I do like it to be chunky. Then you can kind of tell what it is. And gluten-free things, sometimes if they're powdered too fine, they almost turn a little bit gluey. So we just need 2 cups of our crushed pretzels. So there's 1. Let's see how much more I need. Not very much more. And you know, it looks like I'm going to be just over my 2 cups. That's okay. In there. Get all of this that didn't make it in. And the easiest thing is we're just going to mix everything right in here in the casserole dish. You don't even need a bowl. I'm just making sure that I don't have really big pieces of pretzel. There we go. I'm going to give my melted butter and my honey a stir. And then we just pour it in. You could certainly mix this together in a bowl if that's easier for you. But anytime you can have less dishes to do later, why not? Okay, then we just want to spread it out, make an even layer. And look at that, we are done with our crust before the oven is even preheated, even after all the time I spent talking. So this will go in the oven for about 10 minutes. And I know it's just pretzels and butter and a little bit of honey, but it smells so delicious already. Now we just wait for this to cool off completely. Once it's cooled off to room temperature, I will stick it in the fridge. I find that chilling every layer of this dessert or side dish really helps to help everything set up along the way. Again, this is the kind of the time-consuming part where you're mostly just waiting around for things to cool off. I don't think I mentioned. So this is my gluten-free version. It's also my sugar-free version, and this is also my not a box of jello version. I will be using gelatin, but not the traditional package of strawberry flavored jello. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So for the filling, the original recipe called for an 8-ounce tub of Cool Whip. I don't use Cool Whip, so I'm using heavy cream, which is 1.5 cups. And then I've got 8 ounces of cream cheese, a 1/3 cup of honey, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So we need to whip our heavy cream to stiff peaks. So I said to whip your cream to stiff peaks, but actually I meant soft peaks. So this is what I'm looking for. So now, move this aside. So we want to whip our block of cream cheese. This has been sitting out, so it's room temperature. And then we can add in our honey and vanilla. And then once this is all smooth, we'll start whipping it in with the whipped cream. And then that will finish whipping the cream at the same time. So once your cream cheese is mixed around a little bit, we'll go 1 teaspoon of vanilla and then 1/3 cup of our honey. And now we'll just mix this together till it's really smooth. I'm going to stop right there and scrape the bowl down. We don't want lumpy cream cheese. Once your cream cheese is nice and smooth like that, bring back our whipped cream. Now I'm just going to dump in all of my cream cheese mixture into my whipped cream and then mix this until it's really well combined. That's exactly what we're looking for. Then I'm just going to give it a good stir. Make sure all of that cream got mixed in. This really is such a nice texture. Now get your crust out of the fridge. And I'm going to start plopping it kind of along the center. It's easier to manage than one big blob in the middle. And this is why you want your crust to be chilled. Then it won't melt any of this heavy whipped cream or the cream cheese, and it also gives us a really good head start for when we need to add the jello layer. And you want to spread this out in an even layer. And you want to make sure that your filling goes all the way to the side of the pan. If there's any spots where the filling is not touching the pan, then your jello layer might seep down and make your crust soggy. Now this will go back in the fridge, and then we can start getting our gelatin layer together. Now this would be 2 boxes of red jello. If you're using strawberries, then you'd probably want strawberry jello. And that would be the small 3-ounce size. Because I'm not using the jello, I'm using gelatin, unflavored gelatin. So we just need 2 of the packets. And while I'm getting this ready, I've got 1 cup of water in the microwave that we want to get boiling. And while we're waiting for the water to boil, I have my magic bullet here. I want 1 cup of strawberry puree. I don't think that will be enough. And it's okay if we take from the 4 cups that we need. This is kind of 4 heaping cups. So it's okay if I skim off the top a little bit to get 1 cup of puree. My 1 cup of water is boiling. I want to pour this on my gelatin. Now you could also use fruit juice instead of the water. I didn't have any strawberry juice. And then if you're using the boxes of jello, you would do the same thing. You would add your 2 cups of boiling liquid into the package of jello. But because I'm just using 1 cup of boiling liquid, this will be much thicker until we add in the pureed strawberries. Now I'm pureeing strawberries to go in this mixture for two reasons. For one, because it will add delicious strawberry flavor to the gelatin, but also because this is clear. If you're using boxes of Jello, they're already red. And it doesn't matter, you could have clear gelatin and then you'd see your strawberries easier. But I think it just looks nicer to have the red Jello. It looks more traditional. But I don't want the red Jello, I want to make it red myself. And you want this to be completely dissolved. If you've ever made Jello, this kind or a regular box of Jello, and you didn't dissolve it all the way, it gets really chewy and rubbery. And you don't want that. So let's see if we've got our 1 cup of strawberry puree. I think just a little bit more strawberries will top off our 1 cup. And now we've got the exact 4 cups of strawberries that we need. And the original recipe for this also calls for frozen strawberries. And you would get the packages of frozen strawberries that are whole strawberries. I prefer the fresh strawberries, but I also prefer them cut up. It might look like a nicer dessert with the whole strawberries in there, but it makes it more challenging to eat. And it's okay if we go a little bit over 1 cup of puree as well. And we're just over 1 cup of puree, and that's just fine. And our gelatin is just about dissolved. In fact, I can't see any little chunks anywhere. And there's also substitutes for gelatin out there. I think it's agar-agar. I think that's how you say it. That's a substitute for gelatin like this. I've never used that, so I don't know the equivalents for that, but that would work. It does the same gelatin thing like this. So now that my gelatin is dissolved, I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of honey. And this is according to the package directions on the box of the Knox gelatin. It gives you directions for making, Jello squares or whatever they are. And it says that you can add 2 tablespoons of honey or 2 tablespoons of sugar. So of course I'm going with honey. And of course if you're using packages of Jello, it already has the sugar added in. Now I just want my honey to kind of melt in here with this gelatin. And this should still be warm enough to dissolve that honey, or if you're using sugar. And the gelatin isn't clear anymore because the honey's in there. Now we'll add in our 1 cup of pureed strawberries. And you can already tell that this will be the color of our Jello. And I don't know if you can see that or not. I do have some little chunks of strawberry, and that's just fine because we're going to be adding in the rest of our strawberries. Once you've got that all mixed together, very carefully pour in your cut up strawberries. You could slice them if you want to, but I like to cut them in little chunks like this. Very carefully stir this together. Some recipes will say, make your gelatin part first, and then get this in the fridge and let it start chilling because you want it to be partially set before we pour it on top of the filling. But sometimes this will chill faster than you expect it to, and your crust might not have enough time to cool off before you put the filling on it, and then that won't have enough time to chill before you pour on this layer. So I find that it's easier to do the method that I have, where everything's already cold, and then you can pour on this mixture, and this won't be super hot either. It only had the 1 cup of boiling water and then just the fruit. And this won't take as long to partially set as if you were using 2 boxes of Jello and 2 cups of boiling liquid. So now this goes in the fridge to partially set. And who knows how long that will take. Depends on your fridge. But I will be checking on this and periodically stirring it together. It's already thickening up quite nicely. My Jello is partially set. I keep calling it Jello. It is not the name brand Jello. It is gelatin. So this is what it's supposed to look like when it's partially set. You want it to be setting up, but still able to ooze and make an even layer on top of our filling. So now I'm just using a large spoon, and we'll just start spooning this on top. I don't like to pour it, then it might create a little hole in our whipped cream and cream cheese layer, which is also why I like that to be chilled. It makes a firmer surface for the Jello layer. And then just very carefully spread it out into an even layer. And this is also why I like to cut up my strawberries. If you have whole strawberries, it's a lot harder to get it in an even layer and spread it out and make it look nice. And it also makes it easier to kind of smash down the strawberries. I'm not smashing them, but it makes it easier to kind of fill in the little pockets with a chopped up strawberry and our gelatin mixture than if it were whole strawberries. And I don't know if you could tell or not, but my gelatin, it's even firmer now that I've spread it out in a really thin layer on my cooled filling and crust. Not as dark pink as a box of Jello, but I think it's a really nice color. Okay, so now this will go in the fridge at least 4 to 6 hours, but I like to let it go overnight. Here we are tomorrow. I wrapped it in plastic wrap in the fridge. I always worry that something might fall into it or something like that. You can smell the strawberries. It smells delicious. You want to make sure to cut through your pretzel crust. And you should clean your knife off. Here I'm telling you to clean your knife off and I'm making a mess. Now with a Jello dish like this, you never really know if the layers are gonna stick together or not. Sometimes you think you do a really good job and then when you go to serve it, your layers just kind of slide apart. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Want to make sure to get your pretzel crust. And look at that. It's holding a slice really well. Of course, the corner is not usually the prettiest piece, but I don't mind. And it looks like I've got a little bit of pretzels down here in the pan. Get those out. I'll eat those. It's really good. That pretzel crust in there is delicious. You could serve it with a dollop of whipped cream on top. I usually don't, just because I have such a thick layer of whipping cream and cream cheese in here already. And my gelatin layer, I think, is just the right amount. Lots of strawberries in there, lots of strawberry flavor. It is delicious. The cream cheese whipped cream layer is also delicious. And the nice thing about something like this is, like I say with so many of my recipes, you can change this every single time you make it. If you're using boxes of Jello, then you could really go with any flavor of Jello and any fruit that you like. Or do what I did and use the fruit and kind of puree some of it and then just packages of gelatin. Let me know what you think if you make this recipe. I hope you do. It really is delicious. I'd eat this for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It's that good. And it's not a really heavy dessert. It's really nice and light. And if you've been watching my channel for very long, I do have a strawberry pie, peach pie, and blueberry pie bars that are very similar to this. They don't use gelatin. So if you don't like the idea of gelatin or Jello, that recipe, you could just swap out the pretzel crust and it's almost the same. That recipe does have a layer of cream cheese, but not like with the whipped cream, but very similar. And that uses cornstarch. So that would be a good substitution if you don't like gelatin or Jello or can't have it. But thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any questions or comments, let me know and I'll see you on the next one.